Hey gang, so today I want to talk about Khorne, just kind of the faction in general. They're one of my pet factions. I've liked them for quite a while. I love movement shenanigans and things like that. Um, and I figured I would do the kind of tier list thing again. Um, Also, I kind of want to talk about where I've been. Basically, I don't want to get too personal, but I've had a lot going on in my life. Had a pretty serious kind of health diagnosis. If you're one of my friends watching this, if you know, you know. Uh, don't really want to get super into it, but yeah, just trust me. Been busy, been doing a lot of life admin, but happy to be back and making videos. And I will say that I couldn't get over the kind of executive dysfunction hump. Um, with like, I really need to put that on my other monitor. Couldn't get over the executive dysfunction hump. Um, like just going back to my normal videos, so I decided that we would talk about Khorne instead because Khorne are cool. So this is an army that, like I say, it's kind of near and dear to my heart, and I think has a lot of problems just now. Um, like, not most of the war scrolls are kind of okay. Like the rules on them and stuff, compared to a lot of the rules that we've seen, are fine. I think the bigger problem that Khorne has really is that fair to say? Yeah, I think it probably is fair to say that the bigger problem Khorne has is mostly their points costs. Um, Although this is an army that scales probably better with point cost reduction or like cheap units than any other army in the game because of how Blood Tithe works. So like the more stuff you're getting is like specifically better in Khorne than it is for most armies. Something to think about. I'm also sick, by the way, so if I said sick, I'm sick. Um, okay, so some stuff that I think is like massively problematic in Khorne. Let's actually just start at the source of the problems, I would say. This is like the first thing that I think you'll literally everybody who's ever tried to build a Khorne list will notice and be sad about. And it's this war scroll here. And when we saw this spoiled, I was like, Jesus, that's powerful. But then I was also like, Jesus, you need one of them in every army. So yeah, you need a slaughter priest. I think that you probably can't build Khorne competitively without a slaughter priest. Or if you are, you're doing something on purpose that is probably kind of against the rules, if that makes sense. Like, you are making a choice there by omitting a slaughter priest. It's like, what's a good example? It would be like playing Lumineth with no Caligrave or Teclis. Like, you are knowingly making that choice to omit one of the most powerful things in your faction. Um, I think you could maybe make the argument that it would have been like playing Ironjaws with no War Chanter last edition. So this thing's really important. Why this is important is Blood Tithe, obviously. Blood Tithe is sort of less relevant now than it used to be. Where, you know, you don't summon Bloodletters anymore, and summoning Bloodletters was a vibe, let me tell you. However, being able to recur a Bloodthirster is pretty goddamn good. So as opposed to bringing back 20 Bloodletters, now we're bringing, which, you know, was 40 wins. Now you're bringing back a Bloodthirster. That's a lot less than 40 wins. But I think in the kind of weirdly de-escalated landscape that is fourth, it's still very, very potent. And then obviously, Murderlust and Skull Meteor are both still quite good. Spell-Eater Curse is situational, but you know, if you stop Arcane Suggestion, you'll be happy about it. Stuff like that. So I think Blood Tithe is still really, really important, and that means that you need to bring a Slaughter Priest. Why is that a problem? Well, I think that you're in this weird spot now in Khorne where Slaughter Priest is mandatory, and they can only take Bloodbound. So all demon armies look weird because they've got this Slaughter Priest in there. And you can take Claws of Karanak on that guy, and Claws of Karanak are very, very good models. You know, they swing way above their cost. You know, they'll outfight every other little thing in their bracket in terms of offensive output. Obviously, their durability is like as bad as it can be, but they're quite, you know, they somewhat nippy up the board. Corner an army that tend towards high drop, which Slaughter Priest is also part of that problem. So they tend toward high drop, and as a result, you're often given first in Claws of Karnak. If you go first with a pre-game move, then they're moving 6, potentially even running 12 and then charging. The fact that they swing reasonably well is actually sometimes relevant. So I think it's that's a kind of cool unit, and somewhat makes having to take a Slaughter Priest and Demon armies feel less bad. But kind of other problems that Khorne have. Okay, so drops in mortal armies are insane. In fact, honestly, drops in Khorne in general are insane. If you want to bring Khorne are really hero heavy, right? So see in third, models that I liked to play with my mortals from this list would be the Bloodsecrator, the Bloodstoker, then the Realmgore Ritualist, the Slaughter Priest, and I liked Scar, but he was more like a luxury model. But I would say that those are kind of the support models that I liked. If you bring them now, you're 4 drops. You could bring a Mighty Lord of Khorne, and he can take Bloodbound Warmongers. So he can take your Bloodsecrator and he can take your Bloodstoker, but he still can't take your Slaughter Priest and your Realmgore Ritualist. So you're stuck with a lot of drops. And also the Mighty Lord of Khorne has, I would say, not the best rules. He's okay, 7 wins on a 3-up save. He's not an awful bodyguard target and stuff, but another part of the problem that Khorne has, and one of the reasons it's kind of pulled in 2 directions, is that this is by far the best kind of like thing to dump excess Blood Tithe into. Like the kind of amount of game impact that you'll have between using Slaughter Triumphant to bring back an Unfettered or an Insensate, probably an Unfettered though, but let's say an Insensate 2, compared to something like 2 Brasskull Meteors, it's just not really comparable. So I think that because you probably want a Bloodthirster, if you try and build a list that has like a Bloodthirster, a Mighty Lord of Khorne, a Bloodsecrator, a Bloodstoker, a Slaughter Priest, and a Realmgore Ritualist, all of a sudden you've got no models. You've got 10 characters and 20 Blood Warriors, and that's you. So I don't think that that's great, and I think that there are other factions in the game at the moment that have similar issues, like Ironjaw's trying to fit War Chanters into their regiments and things is a disaster. So I think that there must be some kind of way that Games Workshop, if they were looking to fix this faction, can address that. So I think part of the problem that you run into is the Insensate and the Unfettered are actually kind of close, output-wise. So if you look at over here, now obviously the Insensate sometimes absolutely pops off and rolls like a million 6s and stuff. So here this is like a little bit fake. I've halved their points because I was curious how it looked if you assume that you're getting 2 of them, but it's not really 2 of them, and that's not really a fair comparison, because 2 of them would mean that on turn 2 you could charge with both of them and attack, right? So it's not really fair. I was just curious. I think it's more relevant sort of to their wins and their kind of effective health or whatever, but so the Insensate is a little bit ahead of the Unfettered. I'm happy to just say that the Whip and the Crit Mortals kind of cancel out. Yes, sometimes you'll get a turn where you like roll 2 6s on your Crit Mortals and kill a hero or something like that. It will happen occasionally, but it's not going to be common. The Rampage on this thing does more damage. The Rampage on this makes it... See, this thing's Rampage combined with Bodyguard, it actually just doesn't die to a lot of monsters in the game, which I think is pretty nice. Obviously you don't get Bodyguard when you come back because you lose enhancements and stuff, but it's... Well, I think that model is no longer your general and stuff like that. Anyway, quite a good model. But if you're taking an Unfettered, then that is also a support model for Khorne Demons, because it makes Bloodletters able to charge 3d6. And if you've already got this, so he can just use it on himself and just kind of be a self-sufficient piece. You could just take that and then 1500 points of mortals. Probably, I think you would take either Skulltaker, because Skulltaker is just a very efficient model, or 5 Flesh Hands, which also would turn on all of your Claws of Karnak to be his bodyguard. And you want little rubbish, garbage things in Khorne to murder lust into enemy hammers. But I think that taking just an unfettered is probably fine in a mortal army. However, if you're taking the unfettered and then you want mortal stuff, suddenly you're like, right, okay, so I probably want like 1 or 2 units of Wrathmongers, I want my Bloodstoker, I want I've already got my Slaughter Priest, and really I probably want a Realmgore Ritualist if I'm going all in for the +1 to hit bubble, because the +1 to hit bubble on that thing is enormous. I don't mean that as in it's like really impactful, I mean it is literally enormous. The Realmgore Ritualist's thing is wholly within 12, and you can pick terrain. It used to be wholly within 8. The fact that also the objective thing is strangely larger, because now objectives are 40 mil bases as opposed to points, which is a small strange buff. So this thing's aura is physically massive. But yeah, so you can play like a Mortal's Army. I think the problem is that if you play demons, you've already got your unfettered, basically. You can kind of just write that off as something that you're taking anyway, because you want to have a Bloodthirster in your army to bring back. So if you've already got that, then it becomes a really hard sell to go down the Mortal route. Like, Mortals look absolutely fantastic if you have like the Bloodstoker, the Realmgore Ritualist, the Bloodsecrator. You've got your 2 units of Wrathmongers in there as well, providing like kind of buffs and output for them. And then, you know, your Blood Warriors and your Wrathmongers and your Skull Reapers and your Claws of Karnak all hit hard enough for their cost with all those buffs stacked on top of them. And you'll have like a bunch of Blood Titan things to always murder lust if you don't take a Bloodthirster. But if you do take a Bloodthirster, you're never fitting all of that in an army. And if you don't have that Bloodthirster, I think that Khorne were an army that got more fragile. And they already got tabled in 3 turns in 3rd. And I think that, okay, so while stuff is generally less hitty than 3rd, also defenses are lower. All attack is rarer to be able to spring for. You know, Bronze Flesh doesn't exist, neither does Phantom Star. So I think this is an army where like your durability is absolutely going to get tested if you don't bring that Bloodthirster for the recursion. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of my issue with Khorne from the outset, is they're pulled in 2 different directions, and at the moment I think because you really want that Bloodthirster, really hard to say no to a Demon's army. You can play kind of like mixed stuff, but I would be really surprised if that ends up being better than Demons in the long run. I think if it is better, it's probably going to be because of Skull Reapers. Skull Reapers being able to just kind of be a hammer, unlike anything kind of Bloodletters can do, and they're much less susceptible to Bodyguard. I think the only big problem I have with Bloodletters at the moment is their 2 attacks, which means that Bodyguard is half damage, as opposed to Skull Reapers, where Bodyguard is like, you know, 25% off the damage, maybe even 20% depending on the Wrathmonger situation that you've got going on, and you maybe have a Bloodsecrator in there and stuff. So something to think about. So anyway, let's talk about some War Scrolls. We can do this kind of the old-fashioned way. So this isn't in nice order like the Limoneth one is, so we're just going to be jumping around. Realmgore Ritualist, how do I feel about this model? Okay, so obviously it's great in Mortals. Really, really good in Mortals. This is a phenomenally powerful role. The area is enormous, and most tables you'll be able to cover like a ridiculous amount of space. So definitely powerful. You know, this is some battle plans. This is just like +1 to hit for every attack that you make with a Bloodbound model for the entire game. Especially if you play Bloodbound Horde, because if you position this cleverly, it's honestly not unreasonable to think that your army will get just +1 to hit for the entire game because of the +1 to hit from the formations. Just if you're unfamiliar, Bloodbound Horde is +1 to hit if you're attacking an enemy that's contesting an objective you don't control. For Bloodbound, obviously. So between that and this, maybe your entire army just is +1 to hit. That's very powerful. So I think it's a good model. The problem is it costs a drop, and Khorne priests are rubbish. It's funny how Khorne went from having like by far the best priest in the game to really kind of pathetic weak ones. The terrain piece does give you +1 to chanting, but there's no way to get 2 priests. Or sorry, a priest 2 in Khorne. Firebrand doesn't give you like an extra chant or anything anymore. So you've got like one guy with +1, and then the rest are just rolling natty, and your prayers aren't very good. See, just while we're here, I was kind of complaining about this to some of my friends. Unholy Flames is cast on a 5, right? It's +1 rend, which is very powerful. +1 rend is very powerful. But it's wholly within 12, and chances are, if you're playing Khorne, your priest is in a terrain piece that can't move. And they can't get out until your movement phase to extend the range of it. It's not like Lumineth where you can hop out and kind of artificially extend ranges and stuff and then hop back in the hero phase. So this compared to Empowered Nadirite weapons makes me really upset. Because Empowered Nadirite weapons is cast on a 5, but it's a spell. It's +1 to hit as opposed to +1 rend. +1 rend is better than +1 to hit. I mean, Nadirite weapons is like sort of plus. Mathematically, it's about the same as +1 to hit. Increases your ceiling, so I think it's technically a tiny bit better, but close enough. But it's also within 12. This is wholly within 12. Like, why is this so bad? I don't understand. I feel like it could be, for a 5, it could be 18, or within 12, or it could be a 4. Yep, kind of weird. This is completely awful. This is like, yeah, we're just not giving you a second or a third ability in your lore. Genuinely think this could be something incredibly powerful. It is horrific. Just so bad. And then Blood Boil's fine. Nothing wrong with Blood Boil at all. The fact this goes off on a 3 in his range 18 is 3 from the shrine in his range 18 is actually kind of nice. Like Blood Boil. But these two upset me. Anyway, so Priest's not very good in Khorne. You definitely don't really want more than 1. Their manifestations as well. Icon is good, the other 2 are rubbish. So that also kind of leans into Priests not being very good. I think in general that you probably want to do what like KO and Fire Slayers and stuff do, where you murk in a wizard and have the wizards do the manifestation casting, because yeah, like why would you do it in your own army? That would be too cool. So anyway, how do I feel about this model? I think it's a good model. I think if it didn't cost a drop, I would like it more. For now, I'm going to go C. I think it's not unlikely that this thing gets moved up to B, though. Okay, is this a Lord of Khorne, or is this just a Blood Crusher? This is a Blood Crusher, because that's the Lord of Khorne there. Okay, these things, and in fact, we can do both cavalry at the same time. Where are Blood Crushers? Here they are. Okay. Right. Why are Juggernauts so pathetic? Not to spoil it or anything, right? We'll do Skull Crushers first. Here they are. Why are Juggernauts so pathetic? What the hell is this? Juggernauts should be one of the scariest cavalry mounts in the game. Why is it not wound on 2s at least? These things must weigh tons. They're huge. Like, they are enormous things. Compare this to like an Agrodon or whatever. It's pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. I don't understand why they do so little damage. I feel like this could be like, for each model in the unit, make a mortal wound roll, and this unit still probably wouldn't be good enough to play. It's weird. It's so bizarre. As is, these are like... Okay, so the best thing about them is obviously a 2-up save, right? That's like that's their thing. That's what they're about. So it's a unit with a 2-up save. They do okay damage on the charge. For their cost, it's like... But the thing is, they're right. So they're a unit with a 2-up save. So presumably they're good at grinding out in prolonged combat. But like more than half of their damage is tied to charging, and they don't hit. I mean, for 250 points, this thing is in the same region as things like 5 Chaos Knights, 5 Dawn Raiders, Agrodons, things like that, right? They hit like wet noodles in comparison. Bear in mind, there's only 3 of them in a unit, so this is 10 attacks with the champion, and 3s, round 1 damage too. Like, that's more big knights, I think, I think more big knights hit harder than them, right? Because more big knights are 3 attacks on the bats and damage flat 2 at 4s and 3s. And more big knights also do mortals on the charge. So, what gives? I don't understand. Like, this unit just doesn't make sense. You can invest in all of the kind of cavalry support and stuff, but spoiler alert, you probably shouldn't. I think it's the Lord of Khorne lets you reroll this. Yeah, you can reroll crushing charge rolls, which is like the D3 mortal, but it's 1 roll per unit. So this rule is if you have like a Mighty Lord of Khorne and a unit of Skull Crushers, which by the way is like 800 points, you get to reroll 2d3 mortal wounds with that. Cool. So they get always strikes first on an 8 if they charge. You have no way to add an extra dice to make that happen. You do if you play Blood Crushers. You can put 3d6 charge on them. But these guys have their own problems. For one, why are they a 4-up save? They're 4-up, 6-up. They're made of tinfoil. For their cost, to be clear. The problem that Skull Crushers have is they're absolutely not costed. Sorry, not Skull Crushers. Blood Crushers. They're not costed around having a 4-up save, I think. If you compare them to something like Flies, actually maybe they're costed sort of okay. 4-up, 6-up compared to 4-up, 5-up. Maybe that's not the worst. The problem that this unit has is the guys on top do no damage. They're just blood ladders. And again, Juggernauts for some reason are absolutely pathetic. So I don't get what the deal is here. You can bring them back, I guess, with the Lord of the guy on the throne. So maybe that's it. Like, that's why they're costed like this. Because they're an okay unit to recur, but I feel like I'd rather just bring back 10 bloodletters, man. Yeah, I don't know. I think that both cavalry units are really not very good as a result of Juggernauts being awful. I don't know, like, I feel like Juggernauts, this number could say 4, and I wouldn't be like, oh, that's a really good unit. So, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. They're companion weapons as well, obviously, right? So they're not getting any of the attack buffs. Which, especially, that's less of a problem in demons, because demons don't have quite as much kind of inter-unit synergy, but in mortals, that's an enormous problem, because that means that you're not benefiting from Wrathmongers, you're not benefiting from the Blood Secretor, you're not benefiting from the Realm War Ritualist, etc. You don't get Bloodbound Warhorde, all that stuff, so big problems there. Bloodmaster. These models are on my shit list after WTC, where I... two of my games at WTC, I failed to cast a prayer with my Bloodmaster before turn 3. There was one game where he rolled, is it 8 ones in a row? No, it would be 4 ones in a row, excuse me. He rolled 4 ones in a row. Trying to cast prayers, so that was cool. But how is this model? I mean, it's the same as all of these foot heroes in 4th, right? The model's kind of okay. -1 to ward rolls is actually like a really powerful ability. The problem that this guy has, and I think you can probably guess, is he costs a drop, right? Like, you have no way to take him in somebody else's regimen. He's a priest, but priests are rubbish in Khorne, especially in demons, where Rend is further devalued by all of your good models than crit mortals. So, well, what are we doing here? We've got our one priest who's going to go, because we have to take a slaughter priest, right? So we've got our one priest who's going to go in the shrine and blood boil anything that comes close, and otherwise maybe throw out Rend sometimes, but probably just save up for blood boil, really. So, by the way, I just want to say I like this faction. I think this is a good faction. I think they're completely fine, and they've got a lot of cool stuff going on. Just problematic. I think very similar to LRL in that the design inside of the faction is what's holding them back more than anything else. Facets were absolutely a mistake. Anyway, so I think that this model's like fine, but it costs a drop, and it costs 150 points. Like, for the cost of this model, you're very close to just taking 10 more blood ladders, and I mean, I think it's better than these guys, so it's probably there. But yeah, you can just take more stuff. Okay, Exalted Deathbringer. I think he's Exalted Deathbringer. Yeah, Deathbringer. I mean, you know what it is with this model, right? Like, he's 6 wins with a 5-up, 5-up. he he's good if he kills units. He is randomly damage 3, right? Which is cool, but he's only 4 attacks and he hits on 4s. Like, he's a cute model, he's not a good model. I'm not really going to spend too much more time on him. Is he better than the Cav? Probably not. Bloodletters. Okay, finally a good unit. Right, Bloodletters. Bloodletters are good. These guys are actually really good. I think that in Murder Host, I think it is, the faction where after a demon unit fights, it gets a 5-up ward. These things are, like, irritatingly resilient. A unit of Bloodletters coming in... Hang on, sorry. A unit of Bloodletters coming in, fighting, doing, like, okay damage, because let's be real, they don't hit super hard, and now they don't benefit from, like, any buffs in the faction, really. You know, you don't get Wrathmar or something on them anymore, you don't get the Blood Secretor on them anymore. That's all mortal typed. So, coming in and doing, like, okay damage, but then you've got 40 wounds in front of you with a 5-up, 5-up on whatever is, like, swinging back into them. That's tanky. You know, that is, like, Nurgle models. Plus, they have this cool recursion rule, where if you actually do try and fight them for kind of extended periods of time, you get a bunch of models back. Which is why in kind of my wound evaluation things for models here, I give the unit 44 wounds, because I think that if this unit is getting absolutely bodied and like kind of DPS checked, 2 back honestly is maybe even generous. There are some armies like Varangard or something where they'll just get charged by 6 Varangard and kill all 20 of them in one go before you get to Recurreny, but I think generally saying 2 back is a fair margin. And if you get more than 2 back, this unit is very, very tanky. So you can see here, they're not as tanky as Blood Warriors. Even on the 5-up board, they're not as tanky as Blood Warriors. But if you start to like actually recur kind of a lot, then they get there. And they're a unit that kind of snowballs out of control quickly. Have you ever had those games where you leave like 8 clan rats in your deployment zone and you have nothing that can get to them and they run away for a turn? And then they go through a knothole and suddenly like there's 20 clan rats in the most annoying spot for them to kind of possibly be against you. I think Bloodletters can do something very similar. Also, and this is important, I think that this is the best Bloodthirster at the moment, because he can 3d6 charge himself when he comes back, which is really, really nice. And his damage output is not significantly behind the Insensate. Like, it's honestly really, really close. He has +1 Ren Monster. The Insensate has +1 Ren Infantry, which is better genuinely depends on your matchups. There's a lot of kind of god models running around at the moment, and the Infestor is actually quite good against them, because, again, like I said, his Rampage, making a -1 to hit wound, and then being bodyguard, bodyguarded for -1 attack as well, means that there's a lot of monsters that just don't kill him. You know, this guy can just kind of like walk up to a Shorn and be like, what's up? Which is valuable. If he dies in your opponent's turn, that's generally huge, because it means that, you know, you can recur him in your own turn and 3d6 charge him and have him just come right back in. It's that meme of like Barney getting chucked out the bar by Mo, you know? So, I promise this is about Bloodletters. If we're taking this model anyway, because he's so good, actually, see, just because I've basically just described this model, I'm just going to go find him. Where is he? He's going to get 8 here. Because he's so good, I think that Bloodletters then become the best thing to build around. So I made a tweet when they buffed Khorne in the scroll, that basically they buffed like everything in this scroll, right? Like not this one, the one before it, but they didn't touch any of this stuff, right? I think it was like Blood Warriors, Bloodletters, Skull Reapers, that kind of Wrathmongers, I think, maybe even Flesh Ends as well. Basically, none of the stuff that you build an army around got points reductions, and I think that all of these probably could get like a 10 point reduction, and it would help Khorne out so much. But I think while we are forced to take a Bloodthirster to cash in on Blood Tithe Recursion, which is maybe an incorrect premise, and I should play games of pure Bloodbound just to test, but that's my current kind of hypothesis or whatever for the faction. If that's true, then you're already springing 500 points for that Thirster. That makes Bloodletters better in that ecosystem, because they have access to 3d6 charge. If you play a Mercton Wizard, like the one in Oathbound, and if it's a non-Deems tournament, so Forbidden Power is available, you can take these guys with Bridge and 3d6 charge them, which I think is quite powerful too. So Bloodletters, all in all, I don't think any of your mainline units are going above A, but I do think Bloodletters are probably your best kind of fighting unit. Oh man, okay, Skulltaker. This guy owns, right? I'm just going ahead and saying it. Skulltaker absolutely owns. This guy is so tank. He has a base 5-up ward. He has a 4-up, 5-up, 7 wounds. Right? So he's tankier than a unit of flesh hands. Right? So he also slaps. He's Ren 3 against heroes. Like, I don't know what this guy is up to. But, yeah, I mean, this rule is like the old Reaper's of Vengeance rule, which is cute. Don't think it'll come up very often, maybe like once every 2 games or something, if you like play at it for it. He can't get given 3d6 charge by the Insensate. It's not, or sorry, the Unfettered. It's non-unique, which means he's just walking places on foot. But he's a tank for his cost. He has always strikes first, against heroes, which makes him really, really cute in the combined arms one, Khorne Legion. Obviously, I would strongly advise going and reading in this new scroll the interactions with ASF and Fight Next, but basically if there's nothing else to ASF remaining, then you're in the clear, and most armies don't have any always strikes first these days. It's very rare that you actually see the rule, so yeah, I think Skulltaker money model. He's just good value. Like, you know what I mean? Just point for point, he's just good. If he generates you an extra blood tithe, you're happy. He's cheap compared to something like a unit of flesh hounds, or like I mean, Blood Reavers are terrible now, but like Claws of Karanak and stuff like that. His resilience and ability to fight stuff is great. And you may be like, wait, but did you not just say that like all combat heroes and stuff like that are bad? There's a reason this one's good. Check this out. Skulltaker. This hero can join an eligible regiment as Slaughter Seeker. And see how I was really excited and happy about this guy who is literally just a combat hero? Because he doesn't cost a fucking drop. They should do this to so many more heroes. It would make the game so much better. Anyway, so Skulltaker, definitely good model. Oh, where am I going? I'm looking for Chrome. Is he A tier? Probably not. But I think he's definitely, like, I think he is objectively better than Bloodletters, for example. Just if you were to weigh kind of up their cost and stuff. Fleshhounds. Oh, good God. For my poor boys. Right. So they still have, honestly they're pretty similar. They lost their Unbind, right? And they have an always on 6-up ward now, which is nice. Because they're demons. These guys are, I mean, okay, so 5 of them spread out is a pretty large area, which makes them better at screening than things like Blood Reavers. They're also a lot tankier than Blood Reavers, right? They have a 5-up, 6-up as opposed to a 6-up. And they're speed 8, which is nice. So I think that because you want garbage screens in Khorne, really what you're thinking about is Fleshhounds versus Claws of Karanak. Claws of Karanak hit harder. Not by a huge amount, really, because both of them are kind of stuck at Ren 0. Claws of Karanak, with access to all the buffs and stuff, though, do go absolutely crazy. A unit of Claws of Karanak that's making like 40 attacks and hits like 44 times and makes a unit take like 30 armor saves or something like that, you're like, oftentimes, you know, that's not the unit that you're all at defensing against, and people are just like, what the hell just happened? Why does this unit hit so hard? So Fleshhounds are never doing that. But they get plus 2 to charge, which is genuinely not nothing. This means that like counter charge and stuff is actually kind of relevant, especially combined with like murder lust and things like that. You know, you can get up to some cool stuff in terms of just threatening people. I don't think this unit's bad. It's probably solidly like mid, right? Something like this. Probably should be 100 points. If Claws of Karanak are 110, these should probably be 100, is what I would say. Slaughter Priest, I mean, straight to A tier, right? This is the it's annoying, right? Because it's such a rubbish model, and I hate it so much because I hate what it does to list building, and I hate that it's like, yep, this is. I mean, I don't know. It feels like Shifting Stones and Circle or Boros or Choir and Protector of Manoth or any other kind of auto-include your faction is designed around this model War Scroll in any other game. Except I don't feel good taking this one because of what he does to list construction. Because he can only take Bloodbound, and because I mean, even if he could take like Fleshhounds or something, that would help so much. But yeah, so it's the best model in the faction, right? This rule is insane. You need it. Blood Tithe is the most valuable thing Khorne up to. He also gets you your priest. He comes with an Unbind. Gives you a guy to sit inside the Skull Altar. Yeah, just Yep, not much to say there. This dude, he is a 6-win, 3-up save hero, and he fights okay, and he costs a drop, except if you play a Mighty Lord of Khorne, and when he fights, you can fight immediately with Blood Warriors. There's a cool thing there where the Mighty Lord of Khorne can give him all his tricks first, and let's bring him up. Aspiring Deathbringer. The Mighty Lord of Khorne can give him all his tricks first, and then he makes the Blood Warriors fight after him, and then you get to fight with like kind of 3 things in a row. Or if you wanted to be really cute and you're playing like what's it called? Khornate Legion, you could do like Mighty Lord of Khorne gives Aspiring Deathbringer always strike first, you swing with the Aspiring Deathbringer, he makes the Blood Warriors fight, then you've got the some demon like your Bloodthirster or whatever fights, and then it makes another unit of mortals fight afterwards. You can do stuff like that, that's cool. Fight with 4 things in a row. That's powerful. The problem is it's like 1 billion points. I think he's probably here. I think he's probably better than a Bloodmaster. I think that's fair to say. Skull Grinders, I think are the exact same, right? They just give +1 rend to something. 6 wins, 3-up save. Damage 3, rend 2 against monsters, that's cool. Give a Bloodbound hero +1 rend for the rest of the game. Maybe when we get new Korgus cool, this will be Pog. For now, maybe he makes monsters strike last. Don't think I care. I think probably worse than this guy. Probably worse than this guy too, to be honest. Scar! Oh, my boy, look what they did to my boy. Okay, so Scar... Right. Scar used to be insanely obnoxious, because you would just run him away, and he would die, and you would try and kill him with your own stuff, and he was like the model you'd use Ritsack on and stuff. Blood Sacrifice on. To try and kill, because he would come back anyway and you'd get a bunch of Blood Tithe and stuff. Now do we have core rules open? No, that would be too useful, wouldn't it? So replace, that's not how you spell that, replacement. So each unit can only be replaced once, and you cannot replace replacement units. Chaos Spawn and Tzeentch have a rule that gets around this. Scar does not. So he used to come back infinite times, now he comes back once. Combined with like no real compensation, costs a drop. He's flat damage 2 now, with effectively hits on 2s, which is cool. But he lost his like +1 attack for everything near him. He has +1 attack to Wrathmongers, I guess. I don't know. He's a model I'd think about if he didn't cost a drop, but he does. So, as is, he's probably somewhere down here. Is he better than Aspiring Deathbringer? Probably not. But I think he probably is better than Bloodmaster. Okay, I think this is the Herald of Khorne and the Blood Throne, and this is the Skull Cannon. Herald of Khorne on the Blood Throne. Right. Okay. Let's just do Throne. No, wait. Skulls for the Skull Throne is a phrase in this army, innit? Okay, there we go. We got it. So... Okay. How do I feel about this model? I have feelings about this model, and I have an opinion and stuff. I promise. I've been thinking about him quite a bit. I think this model is like so close to being good. Recursion in Khorne is crazy, right? Because if you can recur a unit, you're doubling the amount of Blood Tithe that you get from that unit in theory, which is powerful. However, every Chaos faction that is in Tzeentch and Skaven has been kind of shafted in terms of recursion in AOS. I don't know why they think that this mechanic's okay. There will be games where this mechanic is get 4 units back. I mean, I guess in theory there could be games where this mechanic is get 5 units back, but there will also be games where this mechanic is nothing. You've paid 210 points for this part of the War Scroll, which is terrible. And in games where like your opponent doesn't seek to actively kind of play around it and doesn't try and attack this model, and you just don't roll the dice to punish them for that, it's going to feel absolutely terrible. And similarly, in games where your opponent maybe even can't get this and stuff, and you just bring back like 30 Bloodletters and 6 Fleshhounds, it'll be like, okay, well that was fun. And you're rolling in Blood Tithe and things. So I think the model's actually fine. He's not a bad bodyguard either. The problem is, again, you're forced to take a Bloodthirster. You're probably taking a Bloodthirster. The Bloodthirster is probably a better bodyguard. But I think he's okay because of how powerful Recursion actually is in Khorne. Just not good. This mechanic is awful. Like this is the kind of thing that will tilt you. If it was every movement phase, it would be a lot less bad because then you're getting to make 10 rolls at it instead of 5. But, I mean, 5 4-ups, that's not... 4 4-ups, really. How often have you failed 4 4-ups? Happens all the time. So, probably like here. I do think there's probably a build with that model in it. But I think at present he is not the one that is carrying it. This needs to be better. See, even if it was like a 3-up, I mean, that still will feel as bad when you fail it though. That's the thing. I think that really they should just make it cost some form of tithe. The same way that it costs Destiny Dice for Siege, the same way that it costs command points for Skaven. Or just make it cost command points, I don't care. Okay. Skull Cannon. Good God, what happened to you? This model used to be good. Like, this model used to be, like, legitimately good. It's awful now. Like, why is this rule? Why isn't it the one that Paladors have, where they can just, like, shoot when it charges or something? Why does it have to kill something with its terrible attacks? Because it's got... I mean, man. It's 1 attack, 4s and 3s on the cannon, and then it's just 2 bloodletters. And if you're not a Khorne aficionado, how much do you think... I mean, if you're not a Khorne aficionado and you're this far into this video, then what God's name are you doing here? But why does it cost this many points? Huh? This should be like 120. If that. Like, it's just awful now. What is this? This isn't a rule. Get this off of its card. Just completely terrible. Terrible model. Karnak. Okay, I like Karnak. I think Karnak's good. Karnak's problem is it doesn't have the same rule that Skulltaker has. If Karnak had that rule, Karnak could be in almost all of my lists. But sadly, no. So I'll explain why Karnak's good. It's a pretty short answer. Basically, this faction has Murderlust. And this is one of the best rules in the entire game with Murderlust. If your enemy has, like, I don't know, Alariel or Nagash or Kragnos or something, and you're like, okay, that's my quarry. Then, if they take a turn where that thing moves, which will be, I imagine, most turns, unless it's stuck in combat already, then you get to move Karnak somewhere towards it, and then after you're done moving Karnak, you get Murderless Karnak, and then Karnak can tie up whatever is the most annoying for your opponent to tie up. He's basically just a really good Murderless model. You can completely ignore this, I think. I think this is almost irrelevant. I don't know why Karnak's like +2 charge is conditional on other flesh hounds being around. That's weird. Doesn't really make much sense. If anything, it should be like this model gets +2 to charge, and then if there are other flesh hounds nearby, it gets like an extra +1 or like another +2 or something. It's weird to me that Karnak on his own is worse than flesh hounds at charging, but hey-oh. So melee profile is kind of rubbish. This is also kind of rubbish. I think Karnak used to be a 4-up save. I might be making that up. I think Karnak used to be a 4-up save. I've definitely cast Bronze Flesh and Finest Star with Karnak before and been amazed at how tanky Karnak is. But I guess to pick up like a 6-up ward in combat, which is kind of neat. So, yeah, I mean, the damage isn't why you're taking this model. It's all about stock the prey. If you consider that this model is 10 points more than a unit of Flesh Hounds, and you lose 3 health, then the only problem this model has is it costs a drop. But I don't think it's bad. Probably somewhere... Is it worse than Flesh Hounds? Probably. Ooh, it's close though. I think if we were doing just the model's rules, it would be like up here. But because it costs a drop, it's probably somewhere down here, unfortunately. This model is a Juggernaut model. I've already been through this. Just pretend like you're applying what I said about the Lord of Khorne. Oh wait, I haven't spoken about the Lord of Khorne, sorry, the Skull Takers and stuff. Basically, okay, this one is definitely the best of the Juggernaut models, though, let's be fair. Let's be real. It's probably something like that. So, that guy, the Lord of Khorne on the Juggernaut, the reason he's good is he's 8 wins with the 2-up save. He's a really good bodyguard model. He's a really obnoxious model if you give him 6-inch Murderlust as well, because he's really, really good at just kind of getting out in front of your opponent's stuff and being really hard to kill. Obviously, it's hard to stay in bodyguard range with your stuff if you Murderlust away 6 inches, but I think if you are savvy, it's not impossible, and also just at 8 wins with the 2-up save, he's quite hard to kill anyway. However, he costs an insane number of points. His damage is not nearly good enough. Again, why are Juggernauts so terrible in combat? yeah, just not great. And then the demon one is, I believe, even worse. So this is a reasonably good rule. The problem is, as I mentioned in the Blood Crusher bit, for some reason they only have 2 attacks. The guys on top only have 2 attacks. So Blood Crushers is 6 attacks. So this is actually kind of pathetic, this roll. Also, it's not like the Lord of Khorne one, which is kind of just if you're in combat range. In fact, no, they're the same, right? They're both just combat range when you charge. No. Yeah, sorry, I was right. So this is, if this guy charges, then wholly within 18, then this guy, they need to be in combat range, like when they charge. So they need to kind of all walk up together, which is probably worse, but yeah, I don't know. Just, they're not good models, okay? I really wish that they would buff Juggernauts. This is Blood Reavers. I'm just going to go ahead and put these here. It makes me really sad. I have a lot of Blood Reavers. I have like 50 Blood Reavers or something. Basically, right, the only reason you would ever play Blood Reavers, and I have a list with Blood Reavers in it, the only reason that you would ever play these models are if you have an army that it has exactly 100 points left in the list. Because they are the cheapest unit in the faction. They are literally 10 wins and a Blood Tithe. That's it. Their melee is garbage, their defensive stats are garbage, they are move 5 now instead of 6. Just awful. Really, really bad. Claws of Karnak are so much better for the cost, it's not even close. Yeah, just completely terrible. Don't take these. Take Flesh Hounds, take Claws of Karnak, unless you've got literally exactly 100 points left. They're just awful. They're like, I mean, they're absolutely paying for the sins of last edition, where they were. I mean, I feel like that's just Games Workshop not understanding the problem, though. The reason that they were taken a lot is because Blood Tithe was too powerful, because you could summon Blood Letters. So having lots of them running around was powerful, but like, that could have been Flesh Hounds. It's just Blood Reavers were cheaper and spread out to a larger area. Now they've nerfed coherency. Flesh Hounds are tankier, and yeah, it's just it doesn't make sense. Like, just they don't know what they're doing. Basically, Blood Reavers are awful, really, really terrible. This unit should be like for this unit to be played, it would need to be significantly cheaper. But then you start running into problems of like, okay, what happens if I play 2 Bloodthirsters and 16 Blood Tithe in my army? Anyway, Scarbrand. Okay, so Scarbrand's an interesting guy. 3d6 countercharge is a hell of a thing to be able to do, and he's not flying, right? He is as tanky as another Bloodthirster, but he's not flying, which means that he benefits from obscuring. So he's harder to shoot to death. However, he is one of the swingiest models in the entire game. Before, he used to be like, okay, yeah, I'll do like 8 or 16 depending on when you played him, or 32 depending on when you played him. Mortal wounds to things, like pretty reliably, as well as like whatever damage Slaughter does. Now, this is like a night at the casino gone wrong. Jesus Christ. He's also a War Master, which I don't think is a huge problem, but I think he's probably worse at making use of Bodyguard than other Bloodthirsters, just because his tendency to like sprint off somewhere with a 3d6 charge. So yeah, I think he's fine. He's probably just too expensive. You can't recur this guy like you can recur the other Thirsters, so I think based literally off of that, he should be cheaper. Because this is non-unique. Similarly, in fact, no, well, yeah, he's never benefited from the plus 1d6 charge, but he doesn't benefit from like the plus 1d6 charge, obviously, which means there's some kind of scorn or Jane having them in your list, although not really, I think, because yeah, it doesn't really matter. What matters, like I say, is really unreliable, incredibly unreliable model. Not unreasonable if this model goes in and just like lifts a unit of like 20 dudes. Also not unreasonable if this guy goes in, misses both Carnage attacks, and kills like 4 Fireslayer models or something. I think he is solidly mid, probably worse than all of these, just because his damage output is just not there for his cost. This is just way too few dice. This is 8 attacks, right? Which is, thematic and cool. This should be 2s. I'm sorry. At the very least, this should be 2s. Or it should have something where, like, I mean, I know rerolls are verboten, but like, he should be able to, like, you should be able to reroll Carnage or something. It's just way too swingy. Wrathmongers, these are good models. Wrathmongers are good models. I like Wrathmongers a lot. They're also actually sick models, like, they look really cool. Okay, so Wrathmongers, this is a really powerful rule. This used to be holy with an 8, but now they need to be in combat. I've seen some people playing this wrong. I think some people haven't noticed that this is while they're in combat. But Wrathmongers need to be in combat, which is obviously a nerf, but it's also now 12 inches. And it does mean that there's this like weird problem with Wrathmongers, because like I used to charge Wrathmongers in alongside Skull Reapers a lot, and you would like charge the Wrathmongers in, charge the Skull Reapers in. The Skull Reapers get always strikes first, nearly guaranteed, because they got the 3d6 charge, they rolled an 8. Skull Reapers blend whatever's in combat with the Wrathmongers, and then you pick something else that isn't the Wrathmongers but is near them to fight, and it'll do damage. Say it's like 10 Bloodletters or something. Although this is also Bloodbound type, so it doesn't work on demons anymore. However, now if you did that, you would be pulling your Wrathmongers out of combat, so you would lose your +1 attack aura. It also means that defensively you basically don't get this. Your opponent has to charge your Wrathmongers for you to, or you have to countercharge them in for you to get this in your opponent's turn. So they're good, but they're not great. They're a support unit still. You're not building an army around them, but if you are playing Bloodbound, they're, I would expect to see a unit in the list, maybe even 2. Yeah, they're fine. Nothing wrong with Wrathmongers at all. Skull Reapers. This is a weird unit. At first I was really down on Skull Reapers, I think. Every time here, nope. Skull Reapers do a ton of damage. They're by far the best thing in Khorne for kind of armor cracking. You can get these guys up to kind of Ren 3 if you take the, make them your Honor Guard and cast +1 Ren on them. Ren 3 with crit mortals, probably the only unit in the faction that has a reasonable shot of killing something like Arcani with a 1-up save. This is a weird roll, and I would just advise ignoring it, the same way I would advise ignoring any roll that says control score for most of 4th ed. It's very, very rare that control score alterations matter. I think it's like Catacross, with the kind of 5 control score swing. The only place I've ever really seen it matter, but yeah, I think they're good. There's not really too much to say about them. They still have access to run and charge because of the Bloodstoker, who I'm realizing isn't on here. That is a crime. Bloodstoker was one of the best models in 3rd. So anyway, yeah. So with access to Bloodstoker, they can move 11 and then charge. You can only charge 3d6 now. You can't put Unfettered on them, but you can move 11 and then Murderlust at the end of the movement phase, in the movement phase, but importantly before your opponent gets to redeploy, which is quite strong. Obviously, it doesn't need to be the Skull Reapers that do that as well. You could, if the Skull Reapers are say like 5 inches away after running, you could have like a unit of Flash Hounds or something fast that's also run next to your opponent's unit. Go tag them with Murderlust to stop them from redeploying, stuff like that. That's strong. So they're still reasonably fast and they hit hard. I think they are also probably in this B tier. Probably a little bit worse than Wrathmongers. Wrathmongers are quite good. Blood Warriors. These are also pretty decent models. I think nothing wrong with Blood Warriors. They're very tanky for their cost. Being 2 wins, 3-up save for 20 wins of that for 210, pretty good. I think the problem Blood Warriors have is obviously that their output's not great, and being a big unit doesn't, I think these guys want to come in 20s. That doesn't necessarily play well with Khorne. I think Khorne has always kind of excelled with the kind of MSU approach. You're forced into reasonably high drops, I think, anyway, unless you are literally just playing these 2 models and putting everything in their regiments, which you can do. So I think that they're okay, completely fine. Probably put them here. It's here or here. For now, I'll put them. No, I think I probably will still put them here. Because they tend towards big units as well. They're also somewhat easier to buff and things like that. Murderlusting a unit of 20 Blood Warriors feels quite good. They do a lot of mortals back for dying and things like that. I think they're fine. I think these 2 are honestly neck and neck. So I wouldn't read too much into that. Insensate Rage. This is a really weird model, because I think this guy actually suffers a bit from the Unfettered existing and being nearly as good as him in combat. I feel considering that this guy does not have a really powerful support rule or a rampage that makes him really hard to kill with monsters, his output should be higher. I think this number maybe you should say 6, or this should be 2, or this should be 3, or this should be 6, or something like this. Again, I'm just going to go back here. It is weird to me how similar these things damage, kind of per point is. So this is, here you're paying roughly 17.8 points per damage cause, and here you're paying about 18.6. It's a very similar rate, honestly. And like I say, the That's also not including the fact that the Unfettered gets to move and then whip, and then charge, and like that adds a little bit of extra. You know, that's probably a little bit worse than the Shattering Charge. And anti-Ren monster versus anti-Ren infantry. Anti-Ren infantry is like more applicable, but also I feel like in the current meta, this is better for the kind of thing that you're likely to charge a Bloodthirster into. How much infantry is there where you need Ren 3 outside of OBR? If you're really worried about OBR, then maybe this guy starts to become quite good. But also, 3d6 charge is really good against the -2 charge artifact, so yeah, I don't know. I think this guy, again, people played 2 of them last edition. He's probably just been a little bit overnerfed. He probably could be, I think if he was the same cost, because he's 470 as opposed to the 440 of the Unfettered, I think if he was the same cost, he'd be better. As is, he's probably somewhere like here. Maybe even, honestly, I think I'd probably put him here. Yeah, we'll do that. Wrath of Khorne sucks. Sorry, still sucks. Come up here. I'm not going to go into it too much, but this is honestly quite a good rampage. That's like the only thing it's really got going for it. Otherwise, you may as well just play an Unfettered. Sauce. Unless, like, if you're doing some meme thing where you're playing 4 Bloodthirsters, then go ahead. But, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to pretend that Valkia here is the Bloodstoker. The Bloodstoker is a good model. The Bloodstoker helps prop up mortals. The Bloodstoker deserves probably to be in there. Because it literally doubles the speed of your most important mortal unit on the turns where you're charging. So, don't understand why that's not on this tier list, but that's a Bloodstoker. It goes here. Manifestations, I'm just going to use 1 to rate the whole lore because that's how it works now. It's a bit stinky. So this is a really good manifestation, right? The icon. This, if you don't know how 2d6 maths works, excuse me, because you know you weren't brought up in the mean streets of War Machine and you're not familiar with your bell curve, then this is about 42, I think, %. Something like that, give or take. Better than a 5-up. Worse than a 4-up. That's really annoying. It's only with an 8, which is small, and this thing can't move. It also, I was posting on Twitter about this today, has fly and no movement value. As far as I can tell, it's the only scroll that has that in the entire game. Which makes me think it originally could move, and now no longer can. So, this thing is wholly within 12, not 18. A lot of non-stationary endless spells are 18, but this thing's only 12, and it's range 8. So it's quite hard to use, I think. But also this is obviously a very powerful effect. So I think that this is good. These are incredibly bad. Like, see if they had the treatment that spells in Forbidden Power got, and this was like 12 health with a 4-up save, then maybe it would be in somewhere, because I think they're 250 mil bases. I think it's a 50 mil. Don't think it's 60, I think it's a 50 mil. Which is pretty good for denying space, but also, you know, obviously they have like a terrible melee attack, and that means that they can't get someone with a 9 of stuff and things like that, so not that good for screening. This is a rule. I feel like this could say like 2 for how awkward to use these things are, because you need to like summon them and then survive them to run them at wizards, but also like now they're real models, so they can't get within 3 of enemy models and stuff without charging, so like, and then if they go into health they're 6 health, or sorry, if they go into combat they're 6 health with a 5-up save. This War Scroll is awful. Rathax, I used to really like this as well. Kind of sucks too now, unfortunately. They changed this to be charge phase, I believe. Wrath. I think there's a hyphen in Rathax, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's charge phase. Which means that you need to track stuff it moves over and then also charges over. Because it's this turn. But it's fine, I guess. Like, you know, it's better than Burning Head. Worse than Jaws. So, you know, it's okay. I don't hate it. Don't really love it either. So really, if you're playing this lower, it's Bleeding Icon is the reason that you're doing it, I think. For like teams things and stuff like that, then you can have Khorne take their own lore and just rely on Bleeding Icon, because you're probably not taking more than 2 Priest C-Stays in Khorne either. So yeah, I think that Manifestation's not great. I would probably put them in D tier. Um, maybe it's very bottom of C because of how good Bleeding Icon is, but it's something like that. So anyway, that's kind of like my review of the units. I guess it's probably worth talking about this stuff. I probably should have done this first, right? But here we are. I'm kind of just assuming that you roughly know what these are, but pretty much the way that this works, I kind of said this at the start. This is the good one, Murder Lust. This is the other good one. Everything else, maybe you'll do it every now and then. Like maybe if Morathi, is on 3 health, you drop a Meteor on her, especially because you get 2 blood types back when that happens. Or some important thing is left on like 4 wounds or something like that. You're like, okay, cool, let's drop a Meteor on it. This went up from 3 to 4, but also its damage went up. So sure, whatever. I think you basically never do this. It's 6 for the rest of the turn, when you could do 8 for the rest of the game. Don't understand this one at all. It's really, really bad. Spell your curse, situational, but still fine to have, no problem. It's also a reaction now. It's not like importantly, it's a reaction to declaration of a spell. So is Unbind, and so is the Hatred of Sorcery. Look at me, I even got the name of the rule right. Which means that... In fact, no, excuse me. Do you pick a target on declare or on effect? Let's see. Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, okay. It's on declare. So yeah, I'm pretty sure, because I've seen people doing that, and I've had people do that to me too, where the you cast a spell on a Khorne model, and then it's like, right, okay, 5 up spell, ignore, roll to unbind, okay, spell out your curse. I feel like this probably could have some text on it that says like, if you haven't tried to unbind it or something. I don't hate getting to roll the spell ignore first, but it is a bit weird that you get to do all 3. So yeah, a bit strange. And then Khorne is an interesting one actually. So this is obviously terrible, but that's just because Juggernauts are awful. This could say something like Juggernauts are Rend 3, damage 3, and I would be like, getting 4 as companion. But here, these 3 all quite good. I think this is obviously good in demon builds. This is obviously good in bloodbound builds. These are like your 2 kind of mono, and then this is for combined arms lists. Or I say combined arms, by that I mean a mix of bloodbound and demon. I think this is what maybe makes Bloodletters a little bit better than all of the other kind of core fighting infantry in Khorne. Where you kind of can go in and have 40 wins on a 5 up, 5 up. That's quite good. Obviously it's a lot worse on their turn, but it means that if they ever try and fight like kind of 2 of your units at once, you can fight with the other one first to get the 5 up ward on it and things like that. So it's cool. Doesn't work on monsters, which I think is a really weird stipulation. Are there any monsters that don't have a 5 up ward? Honestly, the Khorne book, like, I feel like there's a lot of things in this book that are like this either got tested for 10 minutes or has changed a ton during testing. So there's like artifacts like this where this is a completely kind of useless stipulation. Yeah, very, very strange. Because even like it specifies Blades of Khorne, so why does it have to? If it was just like Khorne Demon, it's like, okay, maybe some like allied in thing, like the new Demon Prince thing or whatever. But yes, nonsense. I think which one of these you take is basically decided by your list. I think that this does, though strength through slaughter does mean that units of 20 Bloodletters are probably better than units of 10. Even though cashing in theory, on double dip, like the kind of double dip of Thinning Veil, sounds really good. I think that actually you want the big units to make sure that you have a unit left to roll this with, and to get the 5 up ward benefit on as many models as possible. So yeah, I think my Khorne tier list probably would look something like this. Let's do artifacts and heroic traits, just real quick. So this is really good. This is really good. This is priests are so much worse than they used to be. This used to be good, but this is really powerful on Bloodthirsters. Obviously, it's also quite powerful on just anything. 6-inch Murder Lust is crazy. It means if you come within 9 of it in the movement phase, it can tag you. So clearly powerful. The problem is where it's usually best is turn 1, turn 2, which it gets a lot. It would be much better if you could take these together. If this was like on an artifact or something, and then you could take them both. But by taking this, you are saying that you don't have a blood type if your opponent takes the first turn, which, against armies like Nagash and Theric Death Riders, you really want that Blood Tithe so that you can threaten to tag them and stop them from charging you and getting their extra damage. Here, so this is obviously terrible, so it's really between this, which is obviously good on Bloodthirsters. It means, interestingly, it does not say melee attacks. So you get this on the whip on the Unfettered, which means that you can shoot heroes without getting the -1 to hit, and against other things with -1 to hit from shooting. That's quite good. Means that your guy completely ignores Tzeentch's shtick as well. When they're like, okay, you're -2 to hit and -1 to win, you're like, no, I'm not. 2s and 2s. That's quite cool. So I think Halo Blood, definitely good. Obviously, this is really good if you're playing like Nagash or something similar. Nagash be like, okay, I have a 4-up ward, and you're just like, nope. No, you do not. I think the bigger problem that you'd have in Khorne is dealing with Bodyguard, but this definitely helps. So, yeah, I think I'll probably make more videos about Khorne. I'm going to try and do, I guess, what my friend Ronya did, where you just like pick a faction that's not really doing that well and just snowflake it for a little while, because I was playing Lumineth, and apparently Lumineth were more egregious for the game than Night Hunt. They've been absolutely just dismantled. So I'm going to go back to my Khorne. I don't know how well you can see it on the camera and stuff, but I've got my Khorne sitting out behind me. We're like painting and repainting Khorne models and things like that. I can only apologize about the lighting as well. I promise it was light when I started recording. So yeah, I think we've talked about some kind of interesting things here. I'll keep people updated on my Khorne journey, and I think that me kind of exploring a faction and what I learn and how I learn it and things like that, probably kind of reasonably interesting educational content. Obviously it's going to suck if you don't care at all about Khorne. I say suck. It won't be as good if you don't care at all about Khorne, but I think being able to kind of document the process of testing is something that's worthwhile. So yeah, that's all for today. Just a nice quick recording. Casual plus that, an hour and 7 minutes, good God.